This podcast is made possible in part through a partnership with TrueFire. TrueFire is the most comprehensive guitar learning experience on the internet, with over 51,000 guitar lessons from the best educators in the world. It makes TrueFire the #1 most trusted music education resource for guitar players. We as guitar players sometimes get fixated on the gear that we play, and we neglect the skill level that we play. And many of us have a hard time finding instructors locally. TrueFire bridges that gap. You can find my affiliate link below to get 40% off with my code 40watt of your first purchase through TrueFire. Learn, practice, play, TrueFire. This podcast is made possible by the support of many wonderful people over on Patreon. If you would like to support this show and help make sure it keeps going, you can go over to patreon.com/40wattpodcast, where for as little as $3 a month, you can help make sure this show keeps happening. Thank you for all of your support. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the 40 Watt Podcast. I am so happy that you keep coming back, or if you're not coming back, if this is your first time, thank you for listening. I greatly appreciate you hanging out with us and doing the thing, talking about guitars, talking about music. It's a great time. I especially want to thank all of my Patreon listeners who make this show happen. So you already heard the spiel. I don't have to tell you anything else, but this show is brought to you by my Patreon supporters, and so it is greatly appreciated, all that you do. So moving right along, because I know that y'all don't like a long intro, right? Y'all are tired of the long intros. Y'all are already hovering over that fast forward button. We're gonna get right into this. So this week, I'm super excited. So this is gonna be. I haven't had an artist in this vein before, so y'all get ready because this is a fun one. For some of you that are fans of the Tone Mob podcast, and I know a few of you are, you may have already heard from Brian from the Shootouts on Blake's podcast. We're going to get a little deeper here today. We're going to get weirder. We don't talk about aliens over here on the 40 Watt podcast. I don't know. I'm not opposed to it. I'm just not as into it as Blake. But I got Brian from the Shootouts. Brian, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Man, I'm. You know, it's we were just talking before we started recording. It's been a long day for me, but we are here. We're still kicking. We're still on the sunny side of things. So we're gonna keep pushing where we're going. So you are a guitar player in what is undeniably, and I say this with as much heartfelt warmth as I can, one of the countryest bands I've heard in a long time. One of the truest country bands, and it was not what I expected. So, but we're going to back up. We're going to talk about that. There's going to be plenty of that because I've got questions. I have so many questions. But let's give the background story. How'd you get into playing guitar? How'd you get into playing country guitar? And what brought you to this point?
Yeah, sure. So I don't actually remember when I started playing guitar. I was awful little, but my dad got my mom one of those cheapy Epiphone guitars, mm-hmm. It was like a 45 knockoff. Anyway, I picked that thing up from my mother's collection there, and anyway, I started strumming chords. She had a little chord book. It had Elvis tunes and stuff in it like that, and I think that's the first time I started going at the guitar. And I was able to play chords pretty easily at a young age. I don't know why, but I took to it pretty easy. Kept going from there. I got into metal guitar. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, the rock and roll capital.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, so I love Randy Rhoads. I love Van Halen. I love Rush. I love rock and roll guitar, and that's what I grew up playing. But my grandparents, in particular, they were huge country music fans. Johnny Cash, Conway Twitty, you name it, they were pushing it on me. And anyway, I had an affinity for that growing up. And once I got to the point technically to where I could play kind of shred guitar, you know what I mean? I could play some Randy Rhoads licks, dude. Yeah. Like I was getting there.
Yeah.
I kind of discovered who Brad Paisley was through a Guitar World magazine. They had an issue with him featured. They had a couple tunes in tablature, and they had this really nice interview in there. He was talking about Buck Owens, Merle Haggard, all these great country, greats. And anyway, I think the Nervous Breakdown was in that magazine.
Yeah, man, what a tune.
It's so cool. It is one of the coolest tunes. But it had this chicken picking thing in there, and I don't know. I spent a lot of hours doing it, but I was able to figure out how to do the hammer on pull off thing on the telly. I was a telly player too, so it kind of worked out.
Oh yeah.
Um, but
You're already
anyway,
halfway there.
halfway there but I was using distortion and stuff, but I was able to figure out how to do the country pull off finger thing. And I would say Brad plays he was like my introduction into the country guitar world. But yeah, man, that's most of my foundation right there. It's just Guitar World magazine, believe it or not. Yep.
Well, you know that first Brad Paisley album, that was like
good.
That was like that album was a big deal. I had it. I was more into country music then than I am now. At least I should say I was more interested in things that were played on the radio then than I am now. Not throwing any shade, it's just not my cup of tea. You know, you listen to what you want to listen to, like what you like, listeners. But when that album came out and I heard Brad Paisley, I was like, that's what I want to play. I want to be able to do it. I bought a Dr. Z. Like I did the whole thing.
Yes.
But turns out I'm not a chicken picker. I can't. There's something about the attack. Maybe I could if I really just fully devoted to it, but it's like my hands aren't that bright. And that doesn't make sense to some people. I say that it's like, no, my hands aren't that bright. I can't make that sound. But that the Nervous Breakdown, that tune, and I loved this story from about that time. There was a story of, so that album had come out, and I think the first single had hit, and Brad Paisley gets a phone call, and on the phone is Chet Atkins, and Chet Atkins says, and I'm going to paraphrase all of this because this story is 20 years old, so just Chet Atkins says, "Hey, Brad, Chet Atkins, I got this album in front of me here, and it says you played all the guitar on it." And Brad Paisley said, "Yes, sir, I did." And Chet Atkins said, "Well, I don't believe you. You're going to have to come up here and prove it to me." And he flew him up, and like he went and hung out with Chet Atkins and just played guitar because Chet Atkins was like, "I need to hear this guy play." And if Chet Atkins says that, you're something. You're doing something. So you made the transition from metal to country. That's a huge transition. And I should preface, and we want to get into this. You made the transition from Randy Rhoads and like metal to country. Like this is some of the most like authentically classic country. And y'all that are listening to these words, please do not think that I mean, I don't mean like late 60s, 70s classic country. I mean like Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys kind of classic, like almost into Western swing in a few points. So how'd you get there? How did you push that far back?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've had a lot of help along the way. I just
Sure.
I'm a student of the guitar. I know plenty of cats that are like me, but when I try to do something, I study what I'm trying to do. You know what I mean? But anyway, I've had help along the way. The Shootouts, the band I'm in, we made a record with a cat named Jim Campolongo. Are you familiar?
I'm familiar with the name, but if you ask me to give credits, I can't do it.
All right. He played with Nora Jones. He's played with Cake. You know those really classic telly sounds on those Cake tunes?
Yeah.
Da-da-da. Anyway, and he's a really hip instrumentalist. He plays like country music authentically. He has a 59 top loader telly. Anyway, he's amazing. Amazing guitar player. Incredible influence on me personally.
Little Willies. He's
Little
the guitar
Willies.
player in the Little Willies.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
Yeah, anyway, Jim is the absolute most incredible guitar player in the world, in my opinion. And anyway, we made a record with him, and he was throwing me some cats to check out, some books to check out. I really dove in because he's my favorite guitar player in the world, and I was asking him all the questions, all of them. And anyway, he's like, get hip to Hank Garland. Get hip to anything Johnny Smith ever did. Get hip to Eldon Shamblin. Get hip to all the Jimmy Bryants. Get hip to all the Speedy Westlicks you possibly can. Anyway, so I really heeded his advice. Like that was my mission in life, was to understand why and how to play country guitar. It was, and I'm still working at it. Like today, honestly, I was working on a Hank Garland song today,
Oh wow.
transcribing a tune. Um, and every day I practice. I just want to be as true and authentic to the genre as possible. You know, being a shoegazer, I'm out here in Cleveland. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I love the guitar so much, man, and I try to be as authentic and historically accurate while bringing the modern touch in. With
Yeah.
I got my hot Brad Paisley licks I throw into that genre, but I try to combine them effortlessly. I mean, everybody's trying to find their own thing, but I think that's my thing, is combining all the influences from early in the days to today. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny. And listeners, by the way, now that I've had the realization of where I knew the name Jim Capalongo from, you've got to go listen to that Little Willie's album. I think
It's
they actually did
incredible
two albums, but
too.
the
Yeah.
first one, that first album, the guitar playing on that album, it's. I'm trying to remember. I'm real bad with names, which is why it took me a second to realize how I knew the name. But so Little Willie's is Jim Capalongo on guitar, Nora Jones on piano and vocals. It's the drummer from Marcy Playground, whose name I cannot remember.
No, I can't remember
And
either.
I can't remember who plays bass on that record. But the guitar playing is some of the wildest. Like
Yes.
none of the licks are standard. Like you're not gonna listen and be able to predict where the guitar player is going in that stuff, because it's so different. And I years ago had meant to track down more stuff that Jim had done, and now I'm glad you brought it up, because now I'm gonna have to do
Solo.
it.
Yeah. This morning, he made a record with a cat named Luca Benedetti. And they have a new record within the past couple of years. It's called Two Guitars. Anyway, they're instrumental records, guitar focused, and
Yeah.
they are some of it is the coolest guitar playing in the world, in my opinion. And they're taking it way beyond, classic country sounds, but that's where it's kind of based. It's
Yeah,
based
yeah.
there. Mm-hmm.
That's definitely an impression I got on Little Willie's album, is that
Mm-hmm.
it's obviously based in country music.
Yes.
There's no mistaking that it's a Telecaster for at least most of that album. There's, you know what I mean? It's very that stereotypical sound. It's just the phrasing
Mm-hmm.
is so aggressively authentic. So, but neither here nor there. I digress. That's a really cool album. I'm glad you reminded me that it exists, because it's been a long time since I've listened to it. But so taking it back though, you talked about, there's this, you want to be as authentic as possible, and there's this push for authenticity. I think that's really interesting. I think in country music, because I come from a blues background,
Yeah.
and there's a little bit of that same attitude in blues
100%.
musicianship. There's got to be some authenticity there, and when you're not authentic, you get sniffed out real fast. Like people can tell, people know. And same thing happens in country music. Tyler Manco's talked about it on his podcast, Cocaine and Rhinestones,
Mm-hmm.
the importance of authenticity, and that, I don't know, that paying tribute to those that came before you.
Mm-hmm.
And that, so I really appreciate that part of your playing. So when you were doing the metal thing, where you said you had a Telecaster, like were you playing metal on a Telecaster? That was it?
Of course. Well, I mean, I did. I still have a pointy Ibanez guitar. I have it sitting in my room right now.
That's what I was getting to.
Of course. I had all that stuff. But yes, I had a telly, and I was playing metal through a telly. I didn't think there was anything. I just loved the sound of it. I don't know why. They're bright and brittle. But if you're plugged through a Marshall, I had a JCM, man. It's okay. And I played a telly through it. Just roll those highs down. But anyway, yeah, I had the gamut. I was a Jackson. I wanted to be Randy Rhoads, dude. I had every Jackson guitar you could imagine.
Oh man,
Yeah,
my first guitar
everyone.
was a Jackson, and
Yes.
it was great. But I learned real quick I didn't like a Floyd Rose. So
Same. It's hard to keep in tune. Even with the locking and the floating bridge, you can't bend notes. What I noticed first, if you were to try to do like a pedal steel kind of bend, if you bend it up, the top string would be out of tune with the band when you did that. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, Floyd Rose, they have their issues.
Yeah. Just like everything else, I'm a Bigsby fanboy,
Yeah.
so you get a little bit of the same issues, but I
Hmm.
understand. Neither it is a thing you learn. You love what you love. You know what I mean? You like what you
Hmm.
like, and you learn to deal with the issues with it. It's sort of
Hmm.
like I won't go way down the Gibson versus PRS rabbit hole, but it's like, does PRS maybe make? I don't know if it makes better, but it definitely makes one that's ironed out some of the flaws. But I kind of like the flaws a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a dumb thing, but so I think that's a testament to the Telecaster, though. How it's I tell people all the time, even though it is not my go-to guitar, it is not my main guitar. I do have a Telecaster, and I've got a telly-shaped object. It's not it's a T style or whatever. It's the perfect guitar. It's
I think so. Yeah, man.
it
100%.
it does everything. It absolutely does everything. You want metal? You've got examples in John 5. You've got a bunch of other guys who have modified Telecasters to make them, or some that didn't modify them. Country, jazz. You look at a guy like Mike Stern. He's playing like straight
Hmm.
ahead jazz on a Telecaster. Um,
Yeah.
Obviously, it's got a strong place in indie rock and garage rock, and I don't know. I don't understand when people tell me they don't like Telecasters.
Yeah, it don't make sense to me. It's the best. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got in the shootouts. Y'all got a record out. I think.
Hmm.
I know I've listened to a bunch of tracks. Sometimes I've made the mistake of saying y'all have a record out, and they're like, it's just an EP, or oh, those were demos that we released, or
Hmm.
but no, there's an album out.
Hmm.
So how long have y'all had this band together?
Oh man. So I think we've been doing it it might be 7 years coming up here.
Wow.
We've been at it a long time. So just a quick background on the band.
Yeah.
I was in college and I had a college professor that was playing with this cat, and his name's Ryan Humbert. He's the lead singer of the Shootouts, and he was kind of doing a pop rock thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he was looking to branch out, and I was playing country music in college, and I was showing my professor, oh, this really hip Western swing stuff. And anyway, he knew I was a country guy, and
Yeah.
he hooked me up with this cat, and he was looking to go on the country side of things. We got together. We were talking Buck Owens and Merle Haggard. We were talking a lot of Dwight Yoakam, a lot of West Coast sound and country music. And we wanted to go out and do that here in Cleveland, Ohio, the
I
epicenter of
love
country
it.
music. So anyway, we got together, and it was kind of like a cover band when we first started. We were playing honky tonk, a lot of Johnny Cash and stuff. The throwback band.
Yeah.
And dude, the first show we did, we played at a club called the Euclid Tavern here in Cleveland, and we killed. We absolutely killed. Everybody in the audience was like, "What the hell is happening? This is we've never heard this kind of music in Cleveland." And then we felt the same way, like, "Oh, we're actually doing something here." And the connection in the band to the audience, everything felt completely. It felt right for like the first time in my whole life. I've been playing forever in metal and rock bands, but this felt like, oh, I'm actually making a statement here. And anyway, we took it from there. We made a demo record, a couple. It maybe took a year or two before we
Okay.
got out of the cover band phase. And yeah, man, we've been going strong since. For about 7 years, it's taken us this long to finally make a statement out there, but we're doing it, dude. Trying as hard
Yeah.
as we can.
Yeah, and so this new record, like, it's a big deal because it recently released. It's called Stampede. I wanted to get the title out there before I forget. Sometimes I forget things. It's a thing, but there's some heavy hitters on this album. You've got Ray Benson, Asleep at the Wheel. You've got Jim Lauderdale, Buddy Miller. Marty Stewart makes an appearance on it, and I mean, I love Ray Benson. I love Asleep at the Wheel. I love all that, but man, Marty Stewart, being a Mississippian myself, Marty
Mm-hmm.
Stewart, he really speaks to my heart and my soul. Um, I'll tell just because I'm not sure I've told this story on the podcast, but and then I want to hear all the Marty stories. But I'll tell you my only Marty story. I've met the man once, and it was at a live taping for, I Thacker Mountain Radio, which is a public broadcast radio show that happens here in Mississippi. It happens in Oxford, Mississippi. Most of the time, they do a little touring around the state, but it's mostly centered in Oxford, Mississippi. And Marty Stewart was the featured artist a night that I went to one of the recordings. And so it was real brief. I didn't get to like hang out or anything, much as I wish I could. But he's just like the most down to earth, nicest dude. He's just sweetest guy. But he told us this. He told a story while he was there, and if this story were told like, at home over drinks, I wouldn't even share this story. But since he told it on a radio show, I'll tell it. So he had played previously. He had been hired to play a private party at Roanoke, which was William Faulkner's home there in Oxford, Mississippi, right? And it was him and Merle Haggard got hired to play this party, right? This private event. And so they played the show. It was great, whatever. They went about their ways. And so he said a few months later, he got a call from Merle that said, hey, Marty, what was the name of that place they played down there in Mississippi? And he said, Roanoke? He said, yeah. He said, you think they'll let me buy it? He was like, no, I don't think they will. I don't think they're going to let you buy a historic site in the state of Mississippi. But yeah, he's just telling these really down to earth stories. And I want to hear, does that kind of mimic your experience with Marty? Just warm, sweetest dude?
1000%. The nicest human being I think I've ever met. But yeah, so I've opened for him numerous times since I was a little kid in cover bands and all this stuff. And anyway, so the first time he's ever approached me, we're playing with the Shootouts. We get to open for Marty in Warren, Ohio. There's a theater out there, and we get the opening slot, which is really rad. We do our set, and we're all sharing the same green room in the basement of this theater. And we're sitting down there. We just get done with our set, and it's just us in the rhythm section down there. Ryan's out in the front trying to sell merch. And anyway, Marty and Kenny Vaughn come straight up to me. They come straight up to me. I cannot believe it's happening. And they're like, that was some of the killerest guitar playing I ever heard. It was one of the biggest compliments of my entire life. And anyway, at the time we were making Stampede at the exact same time. And I got this, we were just sitting there chatting. Of course, I was asking him guitar questions and all this, but I had to ask. I was like, dude, we're making this record right now. What would be the chances you could play on this record? And he said, yeah, I'll do whatever you want, whatever you guys need. I honestly can't believe it happened.
That is so rad.
Yeah. So, maybe a couple months later, we booked a studio down in Nashville.
Yeah.
He comes in, he brings his mandolin with all the names etched in. We're at Sound Emporium Studios. It was just one of the most unreal. I got to sit there and tell Marty Stewart what to do. I cannot believe it. It got to happen. I got to correct him on a chord or two. Yeah, but anyway.
Oh man, that's a blast.
But anyway, just the most. He's a gentleman in every single way. I don't think I could ever met one of my heroes and been more excited about it. And just the most down to earth, humble, supportive. Again, he's one of those guys. He gave me a list of records to check out. It was one of the first things I got to ask him what to check out. And
yeah.
Anyway. The coolest guy of all time. I can't believe it was one of the coolest moments of my whole life.
That's so rad. Yeah. He's everything I've ever heard. And then my very brief interaction with him, he was just the nicest guy.
Nicest, yes.
And so I think that's really interesting. And I think you see it, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you see it in other genres more, but I definitely see it a lot in the country and the bluegrass realm of that whole embracing newcomers, but also instantly being like, hey, awesome, you're into this. Here are the people you need to know. Here are the people you need to sort of be influenced by to learn the language, to know how to speak. I've been on a kick lately of learning And now most of it's like 90s and early 2000s country, but like learning all the Brent Mason licks on like
Woo,
some of the Joe Diffie and the Alan Jackson
woo,
stuff and
the
like
best,
stuff.
yes.
Yeah, and stuff that, like, to be honest, I'm not really as into musically now as I used to be, in when I was in it, because I'm way I pushed backwards with like the country that speaks to me.
Sure.
But when I was listening to that music, because I didn't take up guitar till I was later in life. I would say later in life. I was 18, but I not as young as a lot of people take up guitar, and so a lot of that stuff came out while I was just a listener and not a player. And so going back to it now, and I'm hearing like one of my listeners talked about the Joe Diffie Pickup Man intro.
So rad.
What a
Yeah, no.
what a great lick.
Yeah,
And so I
dude.
was like, so yesterday I sat down and I was like, I'm going to learn this because
Mhm.
I want to have this in my repertoire. And it was funny because so it's a Brent Mason lick. He played all the guitar on that
It's
record.
really
And
hard. Yeah.
yes, there's a thing that he does in that lick where he bends the A string at the first fret. And I'm like, I cannot do that. I cannot get that part down. So I'm like, no, we're going to slide that. We're just going to slide and pretend that I bent that note because I can't. It's ridiculous how precise that lick is, and that playing is ridiculous. So I've been doing that with several Brent Mason things, just kind of
Mhm.
learning that vocabulary because it's really important if you want to speak
100%.
the language.
Yep.
Yep. Do you find that do you do the songwriting with the shootouts, or you strictly do guitar playing?
Yes, I'm not the best speaker
Mhm.
or storyteller. Yeah, I'm the hillbilly horn part guy. I'm the hook guy. So yeah, I'm responsible for the background noise that some people call it that, but that's our art form as guitar players.
Yeah, man.
I've spent years and years of my life trying to get that part right. But yeah, mostly my job. Somebody will come in with a super simple song. We have a handful of songwriters in the shootouts. Everybody, we got a couple partners too outside of the circle that write songs. Come in, they're GCD chord songs.
Sure.
They're country songs like they're supposed to be. But my job is to hip them up. I'll add in a couple 2 chords, couple 2 5-1s in there, and the hooks, and of course the hillbilly horn part, which is, in my opinion, the coolest thing in music. Yeah, yeah. Add in those really cool duo lines for steel
Yeah.
guitar or fiddle, whatever combo feels right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love the term hillbilly horn parts. I absolutely adore that. I feel like that needs to actually be its own band name, just hillbilly horn parts. Infer what you want, whatever. But it's such an interesting style of music. So I'm curious in playing this music and touring this music and with this record, do you ever get any pushback where you're like, yo, the music's dead, or oh, this is old music and nobody's into it, or do you ever get any pushback? Like, how do you react to that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have, but mostly everybody understands what we're trying to do. But I've been in a bro bar and have played classic honky tonk music and like, hey, where's the Morgan Wallen, dude? Where? Come on!
Gosh.
But I mean, it doesn't offend me. I totally understand. It's like, oh, are you living in the past? No, I think country music kind of went on a tangent in the wrong direction. I mean, who am
All
I to
opinion?
say? Who am I to say? But
Yeah.
I think we're trying to course correct. You know what I mean? We're trying to keep the tradition alive to where there isn't hip hop drums and auto tuned like T-Pain and we're I don't know. To me that's not what I like to listen to. It's not like
Yeah.
it's bad, but it's just
Yeah.
not my thing. It's not what as a group the shootouts thinks is the correct thing to do. So we're trying to course correct in a way. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's everybody has their own taste. It's okay to like Morgan Wallen too.
Yeah, I,
Yeah.
I actually really like T-Pain. I think the autocorrect works for him and what he does and that style, but I don't want to hear it when someone's trying to do Loretta Lynn. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It
that's
it
where I'm
doesn't
at.
sound right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and as someone who comes from what could probably be called a throwback music, I'm in the blues genre, and so I get it. You get a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so do you get a lot of? And this is my favorite, and this is where I'm going to try to see if I'm comparing. I'm comparing fan groups now. In blues, you get there's a term. There's a couple of terms. Blues lawyer has a couple of meanings. And in guitar world, you've heard it. It's the guy who has a bunch of gear, only knows a few chords, and just plays blues licks all the time. Which, don't get me wrong, I'm definitely in that. Definitely in that group. But there's also the blues lawyer that tries to dictate to you what blues is and what it isn't. And they're usually the person who's like, well, that song, if it's not that typical 12 bar format, or they're like, oh, well, that's not really blues. It's this, that, or the other. And, and, whatever. Robert Johnson played polka tunes, y'all. If you want to, he did. It's documented. He played whatever. He played show tunes when he played live. Whatever would get people dancing, Robert Johnson played it. And if Robert Johnson played it, I'm pretty sure we can just let it pass. It's fine. Do you get a lot of that where people try to dictate you and tell you what country is and what it isn't?
Yeah, I do understand that. Yeah, I mean, it depends on what they think. It's a wild genre because what some people think is country music, I don't think is country music. So I'm sure the blues world is the same way.
Yes, very much.
And I don't know if Buck Owens is a household name anymore, but we take that West Coast genre of country music from the 60s. You know what I mean? And that's like a staple of our sound. And they're like, what the hell is this? I like this. I like country music, but I hate country music. It's kind of confusing. So what we get this a lot from the audience. We like you guys, but we hate country. And it doesn't even make sense. It doesn't make sense to me
because y'all are very country.
Yeah,
y'all are country.
But that's how disjointed the history is from a lot of. We're nerds, we're guitar nerds. We would know what that means. But anyway, it's a wild thing. That's probably the wildest reaction because that's 90% of the time when somebody comes up and has never heard us. That's what they say. Yeah,
we like you guys, but we don't like country music.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that tracks. That's a very real sentiment, and it has to do with a lot of what is today on country radio. We're only a couple of days removed from the CMA Awards. I'm not going to give opinion on it. As a music performance and award show, I actually think it was great. I don't know that it was country music. You know what I mean?
I don't know if this is bad. I didn't watch.
No, you're fine. You're absolutely fine.
No, I don't think I would have.
I only caught the highlights. To be honest, I can't sit still that long enough to watch an award show anyway.
Yeah.
I'm that same guy. Like, even if, like, I look at the Grammy Awards and I'm like, I just want the list. Just give me the list. I don't want to watch. Mm-hmm. Give me the list and then tell me who the good performances were, and I'll go back and watch those on YouTube. It'll be fine.
I did see the highlight to Leonard Skinner. I know Warren Haynes was there, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Slash, and there was one other cat. Dang it. I seen it on YouTube this morning. Paul Rogers sang, and it was Billy Gibbons.
That's
Billy
right.
Gibbons.
Again,
that was cool.
People who have a lot of respect for country music, but they are not my first names when I think of country guitar players.
I don't think of those guys at all. But yeah, I mean, it's cool. I love all those cats. They're blues guys.
I have nothing against any of them. I love all three of those guitar players a lot. I particularly love Warren Haynes. I mean, I was really into, obviously, Allman Brothers, and then I was really into Government Mule.
Yes.
And I love Warren Haynes. So, but at the same time, like I said, but coming out to sing a Skynyrd or play a Skynyrd song, he tracks.
Yeah.
He totally tracks. Slash still didn't make sense to me, but that's okay. I love Slash. It's not hate on Slash, y'all. Listeners, don't get me wrong. Do not get this twisted, because, man, people will get crazy about Slash.
Sure. Yeah, man. He's great. Yeah.
I love Slash, but he's still not who I think of when I think of Skynyrd. but it's a genre that I think is due a renaissance. Do you I don't know how old you are, so I don't know how well you'll remember the swing renaissance of the 90s. Yeah,
Brian
which
Setzer,
is
is that what you're talking?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brian Setzer, there was a bunch of other bands like Big Bad Voodoo Daddies, and there were, I mean, it even stretched into like contemporary Christian. There were contemporary Christian swing and, bands coming up, and um it got a renaissance and then sort of faded. And I think it started to happen again. I don't know, but we're sort of due for that push back into more traditional sounds of country music. We got it a little bit a
Hmm.
few years ago, at least I think. With, I don't know if you listen to Shooter
Oh
Jennings, like
yeah,
his first
so
album.
good.
Man, what a great
Hmm.
album! And how old school was it? It kind of edged into country rock a little bit. When I say country rock, it kind of edged like towards Eagles or towards like Brain. Just lost the other band, but um, I think it's such a maligned genre because of modern country radio and the impression it's giving people who are getting into it today.
Sure. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. But
Yeah.
I think there's plenty of cats doing it. The throwback thing. It's not a throwback thing if it's made today, but
Yeah, yeah,
but
true.
you know what man, I really love Sturgill Simpson, and I love
Yes.
those first two records. There are some of my favorite records of Jason Isbell. His early
Oh man.
records are some of my favorite thing, and there's some great stuff. Zephaniah O'Hara has some great records. There's we were just at an Ameripolitan Awards. That's a Dale Watson event.
Yeah.
Melissa Carper. Oh my God, you should hear this girl. It's a Western swing, but kind of like bluegrassy. Um, uh, Sierra Farrell, incredible bluegrass band. It's in the vein of Billy Strings, but a little bit more.
Yeah.
There's bands doing it, man. It's just a matter if they break or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I really think there's some amazing cats out there nowadays. It's going to happen. It has to, right? Eventually.
Yeah. It's got to,
Yeah.
because honestly, it's a very apropos word, because it's an honest style of music.
Hmm.
It's not that other musics are lying to you, but some are. Let's be honest, some are. But it's just a very, it's the whole three chords and the truth thing, that whole trope that everybody
Hmm.
says. But it is. It's a very honest. It's a very upfront. It's a very kind of can be soul bearing music
Yeah.
that and there, and when you start pushing in the bluegrass genre, I've been a big believer in Sierra Hull and the stuff she's
Mhm.
doing out there as well. Just, I don't know. It throws me back to when I was a kid and I was listening to country music. Like my first music I ever listened to, like when I say that, the radio was on, or my mom would listen to Patsy Cline in the car, or that's fine. But the first music that I physically turned on, like, and it was on record. It was an old record player we had in a spare bedroom that wasn't even set up. I must have been 9 years old, and I learned how to set it up. I learned how to plug it in, like all the speaker wires with the little clips, that red and black. And we had a record player, and my first record that I played before the thing broke was Willie Nelson.
Hmm.
And then a little later, my first CD that was bought for me, I didn't buy it with my own money, was Dwight Yoakam. And you're talking about that West Coast sound,
Oh,
and Dwight
the
Yoakam.
best. Yeah.
That all those Pete Anderson licks on those
Woo!
records are so
So
good.
good, dude.
He's such a ridiculous guitar
Yes.
player. I wanted a Pro Reverb for so long because that's what Pete Anderson played. And so that's before I discovered the Super Reverb, listeners.
Hmm.
It is what it is. Super Reverb's my
Yeah,
thing.
heck yes.
So let's talk about those traditional sounds, though. So you've got to recreate those traditional sounds when you're playing. What are you using gear-wise? How are you
Oh,
doing it?
dude. So for two records out of the three that we've done with the shootouts, I have specifically sought out this amp. Are you familiar with the Brown Tolex super amps with the harmonic
Yes.
tremolo? Dude,
Yes.
it is my favorite amp in the entire universe. It is the most amazing sounding Fender amp in my opinion.
I'm so jealous right now that that's what you're playing through.
So anyway, I can't really afford one. They're freaking
Well,
$5,000 nowadays,
yeah,
believe it
they're
or not.
super expensive.
So I borrowed them specifically for the records that we've made. So anytime you listen to the Shootouts, it's going to be that amplifier. I think that's the most amazing sound in the world. But for live rigs, I'm a Princeton guy. I cannot.
Oh yeah.
I can't get past a Princeton. I think it's the perfect 12-watt amp. So I turn it up to about 6, 7. Right, it's getting kind of dirty in there. That's my favorite sound in the world. And just let her rip and let her break up and play live with the band. But I Super Amp, that's my favorite amp in the world. Brown toe leg Super.
Man, it is so good. And I wasn't into that whole harmonic trim thing for so long.
Oh, so cool though.
It is, but I was into Univibe.
Oh, that's cool too.
I went way down. It is cool, and it's a similar sound. It's not the same, listeners. Before you come at me in the comments, it's not the same, but it's a similar effect. And that's who I was. I was the guy with a Univibe. I didn't have a pedal board without a Univibe on it for a long time. I went way down the Jimmy rabbit hole. Which is funny because the other big Univibe user is David Gilmour, and I'm not a Pink Floyd guy. No disrespect, I actually really like the music. It just didn't speak to me the way, like Jimmy and later Stevie Ray Vaughan and, some of those other cats did. And so I was always, and up until probably since I started this podcast, I've always been Univibe's good enough. Univibe's good enough. Then you hear an actual brown panel Super, and you hear that Univibe. I mean that harmonic trim, and it's like, oh, wait. Let me rethink this. Let me reconsider. And so I have always got my radar up for a stupid price brown panel Super. I'm determined it's going to happen. I'm going to find one in a pawn shop or a garage sale. I'm speaking it into existence. I'm going to find one.
I hope I find one too, man. Let's hang out together. Let's go look for one.
Yeah. Right?
Rare. They're so rare. They're rare.
And see, I've had Joey Landreth on the podcast before, and Joey is also really, really into that Super sound. He's got at least one. He may have more than one. But it's there's something about the way that it does the shifting of the high and low frequencies into each other that is, and I don't want to turn it off. I just want to leave it
just
on.
Just a little bit. I mean, if you just, I literally leave it on just a little, it gives it this cool texture in the background. Yep. Yeah, dude, 100%.
And I do the exact same thing with chorus pedals. Sometimes I actually have my Analog Man chorus here. Nice. That's one of my favorite settings. Just speed all the way down, depth all the way up.
So just get a kiss.
Just let it just slowly move. Just tiniest little bit.
Dude.
And, oh, man. So, all right. So, Princeton Reverb, which I love the Princeton Reverb.
So good.
I like them more when they have a 12-inch speaker, personally.
Sure, so they don't break up. I like them farting. I think they sound good farting. Yeah.
I've got a Tyler back here. I think it's focused. Yeah. It's a roughly a Princeton Reverb. I mean, it's a little different. It's got a couple of things going on, but it's a great amp. I like, if I'm going to have only one speaker, I need it to be a 12-inch.
Yeah.
But if I have more than one, give me 10-inch speakers all day long. So, all right, guitar-wise, because I watched some of y'all's videos because I was real curious. And, I was in a situation where I actually couldn't pull up Spotify, but I was going to pull up videos and listen to y'all. And I see Gretches. Obviously, we've talked about Telecasters. Of course, these are videos. So what guitars are you playing?
Yeah.
Besides, obviously, a Telecaster.
That's my main rig. I actually play a T-style guitar. You ever? Yeah. So I have a Han Telecaster. They're a company based out of Brooklyn. Yeah, so that's what I play. It's actually it's a Jim Campolongo signature guitar.
Ooh. Oh man, really?
It's called a Model C, and it's the most telly sounding telly I've ever heard in my entire life. It's the most amazing guitar in the world. And they're hand built, He makes the bridges, the frets, he makes the keys, he makes everything. So anyway,
Wow.
it's based off of a '59 Telly.
Okay.
It's a beautiful. It's pine, which is also an interesting feature. Pine
Yep.
Telecat, really light. It less than 5 pounds, maybe 5 pounds, maybe.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
and a thing I do to my tellies, I change my pots out because I do
Mm.
I do the Roy Buchanan, Danny Gatton thing where I roll my volume and I roll my tone knob a lot to have
Yeah.
instead of having effects on my board, I use my volume and tone pot, and I put Eddie Van Halen pots in. PV makes these low resistance pots. So I put those in my tellies. So I have a Han Telecaster and I have these weird pots in them, and I have a American Standard that Joe Glazer set up. It has a B bender.
Oh,
Yeah, it
hey.
has a B bender guitar in there, and yeah. So I have two tellies. I run those. Those are my two main rigs. And then
Okay.
every once in a while, if I'm feeling up to bring in three guitars, which is pretty extreme in my opinion, I do
Yeah.
run a hollow body. I actually, have you ever heard of Reverend guitars? Yeah,
Yeah.
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 I have a Pete Anderson signature Reverend guitar that I play
Oh, yep.
sometimes. It's
Which is a reverend I've wanted just because Pete Anderson's name is attached
Yes,
to it.
yes, he's incredible. It's a really great guitar. It's P90s up and down. Has a Bigsby on the guitar. So if you want to do those really cool rockabilly Bigsby sounds, it's available. And it's a neat guitar. It has an interesting feature. It has a low boost, and you could cut the low end completely out of the guitar or boost the low end.
Oh, yeah.
It's an
Yeah.
interesting knob. It's different than any other guitar I've ever played. But essentially, it's like a Gretsch, but a fancier Gretsch.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that's like that knob. I've had a couple of reverends. That's like a reverend
yeah,
thing. That bass contour
yeah.
knob, I think is what they
Contour.
call
Is
it.
that the right word? I just know it adds or cuts low end.
It does. It does. Look, it's all marketing jargon. I don't know what it technically does, but yes, it does exactly what you say it does. They can call it whatever they want to. They can. I almost tried to make up a word off the top of my head, but I'm going to say something insulting if I try to do that, so I'm not going to do that. But all right, so Telly Styles, a P90 kind of hollow body style. I mean, you and I are becoming real good friends real fast. You like supers, so we're best friends at that point. So pedals on the floor. Do you bother? Do you do
Yeah,
that?
I do run a pedal board, but I am the simplest. I'm traditionalist, like in blues,
Yeah.
traditionalist. My most expensive pedal is a Peterson tuner. Yeah, it is
Yes.
100% my favorite pedal in the world. It has a sweep tuning setting. So if
Yep.
are you
I just upgraded my
Yes.
tuners, both of my tuners, to the Peterson,
Yes.
and I'm super. I've got a blues festival that I'm playing next week, and I'm super pumped. I've got my board, getting my boards together, and I'm also like, I don't need this big board, small board,
Mhm.
like tiny board. Give me. But yeah, I was tinkering with that sweetened setting,
So
and
cool. So
dude, I thought it was snake oil. I thought, oh,
play
this
with
is.
the
It's
keyboard
not going to be
player.
that big a
Play with
deal.
the keyboard player and tell me that.
Yes. No, you're absolutely right. I tuned to it and I strummed a chord and immediately I was like, shit, there is something to
Mhm.
this. It's a thing.
Mhm.
Um so I don't know that I can go back.
Mhm.
And of course I literally just bought these 2 weeks ago on a road trip. I bought them at the Guitar Center in Pensacola, Florida. Coming back from a gig in Orlando. And I immediately spent my gig money buying more pedals because that's what I
Yeah.
do. Uh, so but I bought two because I have two different pedal boards that I use for different things. I actually have three, but the other one's just kind of always changing. It's just so I have a place to put pedals.
Mhm.
And I bought them, and then yesterday, as we're talking, Peterson released a mini version of the Strobo
Are
stock
you
tuner.
serious? This is
I'm
news to
so
me.
serious. Yeah, it's got top mount jacks, and
What?
it's about 3/4 of the size, or maybe 2/3 of the size.
Oh no, I might be selling my pedal and getting a mini. That's awesome, man. I'm definitely going to check that out first thing when we're done.
Yeah, no, and I was like, damn it. I was like, am I still in the return window for
Oh, that's so
these?
cool, man.
Which I am, but I'm not going to. They did the one thing I don't like is that the power jack is on the
Yeah.
side, so you've still got to deal with that. But it's still a little smaller than the original because there's no side jacks on
Mhm.
it, so it's all anyway. if you're one of those tight pedal board people, you have a new option in the Peterson Strobostomp.
And not only that, if you play mandolin, if you play pedal steel guitar, like I play pedal steel guitar, you play banjo, it is specifically, they intonate every note based on the instrument you're tuning. And I bought that pedal with, I'm a pedal steel guitar player too. I bought it with that in mind. I want to tune my steel guitar and I want to tune my electric guitar as best as possible, dealing with other instruments in the band. You know what I mean? It's such a headache.
Yeah.
Pedal steel guitar is a nightmare as far as that goes. Whereas electric guitar is a little more forgiving in that regard. But
yeah, I bought a pedal steel last year or a year before last. I don't know. It's all a blur. But determined I was going to learn to play it, and I ended up trading it off. And now I'm like, you know what? I should have given that more of a shot. I really want to play pedal steel real bad.
It's
because it's
so much
just
fun.
So cool.
It's so much fun. But you know,
there was
the flat electric guitar's fine too. I mean, that's plenty fine. Just a normal steel guitar. Pedal steel guitar is a headache. It can be.
It is. We had a sort of a hometown hero for a while. Back where I'm from, I won't name names, but he had, just because, you know, out of respect, went on he had a, trying to do this without naming names. Actually, I think I can tell this story and nobody will be able to look it up. But so Conway Twitty is from the county I'm from. Like grew up in the same area, although decades apart. Like, I'm obviously much younger. I've actually played with his son, which was kind of a cool story.
That's super cool.
It was like a jam night, and he came up and was signed the list just like everybody else. So I brought him up and we jammed. It was great. But yeah, this guy was in his band and played pedal steel for him, for Conway Twitty. And then when Conway Twitty packed up and decided to move to Nashville, the guy playing pedal steel said, "You're insane. You'll never make it. I'm going to stay here and farm where I can make a living."
No. Did John Huey take his gig after the fact? Because John Huey is fame.
He's the guy who's known.
That's the guy. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm assuming so. I don't know if maybe there was also a fill-in between there, if there's a little gap between there. Because I don't know the timeline between Conway Twitty leaving and then becoming Conway Twitty.
Because there was that weird rockabilly period.
Yeah, exactly. So that steel player, his son grew up to also be a really great pedal steel player and played around the area. And so I grew up hearing him play, and I was like, man, what a cool instrument. But it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare to tune. It's a nightmare to set up. It was a nightmare for me. And the thing that finally got me done was I was trying to do the whole knee levers dance. And I was like, you know, and that's where I gave up too quickly. I should have just folded up the knee levers and forgot they were there.
Oh,
because at least to get going. Sure. I understand that. Get your couple changes down, then add in the extra. Sure. Yeah, that's what I should have done. Instead, I got frustrated and was like, "No, we're gonna."
You need more than a year, I would say, for a pedal steel guitar to get at least to the intermediate level. You need more than a year. It's a helicopter. It is.
Dude, it's a total different animal. Yeah. We call it a guitar. It is not a guitar in any way, shape, or form to me.
It's tuned to E. Some of them, you know, if you're playing the E9, it's close.
Yeah, it definitely has strings. I will concede it definitely has strings.
Yeah.
So, but it is obviously its own animal. But so besides tuner, any other pedals? Anything you're running?
Yeah, man. So I had a gift given to me. I had a buddy say, "Okay, I think you need to use a long delay," because I've always played dry, man. I don't use delay very often. He gave me a Dispatch Master by Earthquaker device.
Ooh,
you've heard of that? It's really cool. It's got like a reverb delay combo, and they interact with one another. And I've been running, so we did like a 30-day tour last month. We've been on the road for, oh my goodness, I'm just glad to be home right now. Let's just say that. Anyway, and I ran this pedal for a month. I'm really digging this pedal. It's cool. It's like a long delay, and it interacts with the reverb. So unlike ballads, slow ballads, it sounds really cool. And it kind of degrades, the delay degrades as time goes on. It's really neat. So I've been using that lately. I have a slapback pedal on my pedal board. I switch between a DD3 and a carbon copy. And
Okay.
right now I have the carbon copy on my board. Just because it sounds a little more old school. It degrades to the slap. Sounds kind of funky and old. I kind of dig that.
I love the carbon
So
copy.
cool.
I was just telling someone today how much I love the DD3. I do. I love the DD3. But if you're going for that slap back, like old
Yeah,
school
Scotty
vintage tone,
Moore
yeah.
ish. You know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to
Yes.
go for. But I do run. I go back and forth a lot. I can't pick because they're both so great. Um,
Yeah.
and I run a Phase 90 when I'm pretending to be Waylon Jennings.
Oh,
But it's
because you got
yeah, it's
to.
just there. I don't use it very often, but when I want to be Waylon Jennings, I kick it on. And then I'm running a what's the name of that? Earthquaker device. It's called the Plumes. It's a tube screamer
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of pedal. I
Yeah.
use that as my boost. I have the gain on 0. I've tried compressors. I've tried all kinds of transparent overdrives. Everybody's always talking about these terms. But anyway, I decided to go with the Plumes. I think it's really great. It adds just a touch of gain, a touch. And the
Yeah.
mid-range boost is what I'm all about. It is so nice. And it cuts through for leads. I kick that on to play lead guitar sometimes. Specifically when I'm trying to be a rock and roll, a little more rock than a strictly clean Princeton amplifier. But
Sure.
that's literally my entire pedal board. And half the time, I don't use any of those things. But they're there. They're there if I want to. You know what I mean? They're
Yeah.
options. And, I think you could get most genres of music out of those handful of pedals there.
Yeah. I absolutely think so. Well, I tell you what, we are coming up on time for the main episode, and I do have I have started asking a question at the end of the episode. I'm not going to ask your favorite boss pedals, so and it's always perfect to end this at the end of the at the end of a gear talk, like we're approaching here. So, what are you jonesing for? Like, is there a piece of gear out there besides a 61 Super? Uh, besides that, what are you looking for? What are you jonesing
Dude,
for?
I've been looking at 335s for 2 years straight. At least 2 years. I want the 335. Is that a 60s?
No, this is a So I got this earlier this year. This is a 58 reissue.
So it's got the big
Yeah,
fat neck.
yeah,
Woo!
big fat
I
neck.
got a 54 one ES 125 in the back.
Oh yeah, I love those. I was looking at
I
that
was
earlier.
wondering if it's similar neck profile. Is it similar to that?
Probably, I'd imagine this is a chunky
I
neck.
love that.
It means it. Yeah, me too. See, that's why I like this one over like a 59 or a 60 reissue, and then if you get to a certain year, the nut gets
Yes,
narrower as
the
well, and so
pencils.
I'm like,
Yeah, that's not
yeah,
cool.
I not for
Mm-mm.
me, not for me. I like the bigger neck. I'm playing blues. I need to
Yes,
be able to like grab a hold
and
and
feel
bend.
it. Yeah, dude,
Um,
makes
yeah,
100% sense.
bending
Yeah.
bending on a thin neck hurts my thumb, like because I have to get like cramp my hand so small. Like this, like my hand stays real open. I have gotten better at playing other neck shapes though as I've gotten older and like can play thinner necks, but for a long time it just wasn't possible. It actually hurt my
Mm-hmm.
hand. Dislocated that thumb in 5th grade, and it still occasionally just gives me
Mm-hmm.
issues. But yeah, dude, a
That's
335.
that's what I
They're
want.
they're
That's my dream piece of gear. That's my next thing. That's when I'm gonna drop so much money, and it's gonna hurt my bank account, hurt me financially, but I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna do it for the better.
Yeah,
Yeah, the betterment of
absolutely,
music.
dude.
Yes.
Dude, and I recommend, and this is me just, I have an affinity for the now no longer existing Gibson Memphis shop. And so if you can get one that was made in that Memphis shop, those are special because this one was made in actually, I think I have 3 Gibson semi hollows, and all 3 of them were made in the Memphis shop. So I'm pretty particular
Oh,
to
that's
those.
awesome, man. Better build quality, would you say?
That's a tough one, whether it's true or not. But I feel like it
Mm-hmm.
was, and there's been some people who probably know more than me who seem to agree with that. But I can't tell you that's a cut and dry. I can't tell you that the Memphis shop is always going to be better than maybe something that was made in Nashville. But and I'm sure they're making great guitars now. I just haven't played them, and I found this one,
Mm-hmm.
and I was real happy to find this one earlier this year. And I tell people, actually, I said it after I'd had this guitar for about 2 weeks. This guitar almost made me a guitar monogamist because this was about all the guitar
That's
I needed.
awesome. Yeah,
So,
dude, you found the one. That's
found the
awesome.
one. Yeah. So hunting for a 335. I'll keep my eyes peeled for your area because
Dude,
I'm constantly
I would
seeing
appreciate it.
stuff for
Yeah.
sale. So before we wrap up this episode, I've got a couple of people to thank. I'm going to thank all of my Patreon supporters in no particular order. I need to thank Nick Call, Alan Gresham, Scott Hamilton of the Effects Loop podcast, Blake Jefferson, Rick Calhoun of Honey Picks, Tom Kelly, Jim Burns, Jordan Galash. Jordan, I don't know how to say your last name. Please correct me. Jeffrey Walks, Heath Batt, Kyle Harris, Duncan Watson, Dave Evangelista of the Guitar Dads podcast, Dan Pilver of Lewitt Microphones, Ben Fair of Electromotive Sounds. Hey, y'all, if you're into Klon pedals, pay attention to Instagram tomorrow and follow Electromotive Sound. This may be a pedal that's coming out this week. Andy Koning, Andrew Hensley, and Andy Johns. Thank you all for all of your support. You literally make this show possible. Brian, we're going to go over to the Patreon episode and talk a little more for these fine folks.
Heck yes. See you there, man.
Well, before we go, tell people where they can find you.
Check us out on shootoutsmusic.com. We have a bunch of tour dates there. We have a record that is fresh out since February. It's called Stampede. Please check out our vinyl. We have t-shirts. We have koozies. We have CDs, 45s, anything music related.
Oh, wow.
Please check out our shop there. We would be so grateful for you to pick up anything. It would mean the world to us. We're a struggling, independent artist, and it would mean the world to us. That's how we keep going. So if you could check that out, it would be awesome. Thanks so much for having us, man.
Oh, man, I'm so happy to have y'all. And listeners, all those links are down in the description below, whether you're on YouTube or wherever you're listening. So click those links, go over, check their stuff out. And I'll leave some Spotify links and some other stuff down there as well so that everybody can find you everywhere you are. But in the meantime, listeners, I greatly appreciate all of you hanging out and listening and chilling out with us and talking guitar and music and nerding out. So y'all take care. I'll see you next week. Be kind to yourselves, be good to each other, and make some noise.